Hello, everybody. Are we live? Are we live? Those of you that are older like me probably remember the saying, is it live or is it Memorex? I do not know why. I didn't even say that right. I do not know why that just came into my brain. But happy Sunday. We are live. Hopefully, you all are doing good. I am just grateful that we're all here, and I am grateful that Derek and Addie are they are the best moderators, the best. Addie is formerly homeless. And I've said this a bunch of times. Hopefully, she'll remain that way. And Derek is currently homeless, and I hope he will be housed someday soon. Oh my gosh, how was your week? So I don't see Dano. Dano is usually the first person here. Hopefully, he's all right. How are you all about this 11 o'clock, which is 2 o'clock Eastern time? I don't know. As you can see, I was mumbling words. I don't know yet if it's going to be a good time yet, because I've only been able to get 1 cup of coffee in. I did get up early, but I was working on boxes and a couple of other things. And oh my gosh, just trying to figure out life in Los Angeles. Phew, there's Dano. All is good. Dano's usually the first one. He's slagging in this time zone. And let me see. Eileen was hoping for Selma and Jan. We will have them on. Unfortunately, they do their big. So Soma goes out every day. Jen goes out on Saturdays, specifically for sex worker demographic. Soma goes out every day, and as a organization, the Sidewalk Project, their big day is Sunday. So they meet at noon on Sundays, and it was just a little rough for them to be able to join us, but we'll make it happen. We might have to move a special time zone or a special to have them, because, and we'll get to that in a bit, but something else is much more pressing. But there was a lot of controversy, which I knew was going to happen over their mini doc. So I thought it would be best to have them on to talk about some of it. But this is important. If you are in the United States, please contact your legislators. So, the Supreme Court, let me just get this link in here. Let me get this link. Hey, Melka. Not quite yet. Just trying to wake up now. The Supreme Court in the United States threw out the eviction moratorium. There are millions upon millions of households, not just individuals, families with children, that are at risk of being evicted. I assume it's the same in Canada and probably the UK and other countries too. But this right here is the United States. We have an advocacy platform for you to contact your legislators. We make it easy for you. Type in your address, your zip code, a letter, or a suggested email populates, but you can write your own. I highly suggest writing your own. I think about this a lot because we're going to see, and I really am. I'm sure some people argue about this, but I really am a positive person, glass half full, and I know we can end homelessness. We just lack the political will to do it, and with the amount of evictions that we're soon to see, it's really, really scary. Um, Elderly homelessness, and we'll try to hit a lot of these topics coming up. Elderly homelessness was growing even before the pandemic. I mean, it was at crisis level even before the pandemic. And now, with all these evictions coming, it's really scary. We're not ready. We weren't ready for the crisis of elderly homelessness before the pandemic. And, landlords need support too. So, there's big, huge corporation landlords. They're going to ride this crisis, the wave of this crisis, just fine. I saw on CBS News, drugstore news. I don't have enough coffee in me. I saw on CBS News the story of a landlord who is now homeless, living in her car because her tenants aren't paying rent. So, and there's support. If you are at risk of being evicted, please, please, please reach out, because there's money to keep you in your home. There's money to pay your landlord. If you're a landlord, please look into this. The money is really for landlords, for renters to pay their landlords. The states have, my biggest concern going into this, it was really amazing that the Biden administration was, for the first time in probably history, putting significant funding into ending homelessness. The homeless sector, and not just the homeless sector, bureaucracies have a long history of messing things up. And my fear of going into this was they'd mess it up, and they're messing it up. So there's money there for renters to pay their landlords. It's just not being distributed correctly. The bureaucracy is maddening. But please, if you're in the United States, please click on that link, put in your address. Your state and federal politicians will pop up, and type in that they need to fix the affordable housing crisis. It's so very, very important. I cannot stress how, so many things affect homelessness. Affordable housing, lack of a living wage, racism, domestic violence, addiction, mental health, foster care, broken criminal justice system, all affect homelessness. It's research shows that the lack of affordable housing is what is causing homelessness, the most homelessness, and we have to fix it. And with the eviction moratorium lifting, my gosh, it's going to get really bad. So it's up to us, those of us that are on the internet and that, call, write, tweet, Facebook, your legislators, support your local homeless services. Anyways, as many of you have seen, we posted a new mini documentary on the Sidewalk Project. And I'm going to say this up front, is that I knew it would have controversy. So we dropped a bunch of subscribers, probably dropped a bunch of donors. I knew this going in. For every subscriber that left because of the Sidewalk Project, we'll eventually get 2 back. For every person that stopped donating, we're going to get 2 or 3 people that will donate, and people that are filled with compassion and filled with understanding. And I've really got to start off by talking about harm reduction. So harm reduction is really what it, you could take it phonetically, reducing harm, a strategy to reduce harm. So this morning you brushed your teeth. I hope you brushed your teeth. That's harm reduction. Maybe you took multiple vitamins, a 1-a-day vitamin in the morning. That is harm reduction. When you get in the car and you fasten your seatbelt, that is harm reduction. Literally, that is harm reduction. It's something people do to reduce harm. That's simple. When it comes to drug addiction, there's huge so there's a couple of different recovery models. One is abstinent based. The other is harm reduction. There's a couple in between. What's ironic to me anyways is the abstinent based people that mean you just stop do not support harm reduction, where the harm reduction people support abstinent based. Now, I got sober through an abstinent based program, but I also support harm reduction. And I'll tell you why. And I'll say it in a story. There was a father and son when I was working as a case manager in Glendale. There was a father and son who were homeless. And the son, Richard, both of them were really nice. Both of them were drinking themselves to death after the mom and wife died. The wife died, and the father and son emotionally couldn't handle it, started to drink, got evicted, ended up homeless. Richard drank so much, he started developing medical problems. He started getting sores on his leg from damage to his liver. He couldn't wear jeans because it would hurt. So what he would do is he would wear shorts, and then he would wrap bandana around the sores so he could go out in public and people didn't see it. Any logical person would say, gosh, I have a problem. I have a drinking problem. Any normal person would say, I have a problem. Maybe I need help. But here's the thing about addiction. The normal rules do not apply. You just don't make a decision to get sober. Yes, some people do. But that's a small percentage of people. If there was a harm reduction model to help Richard, I would have been able to save his life. But Richard would not go into recovery. He would not go into detox. He would not go into anything because alcohol was controlling his life. Richard eventually died homeless, a death that could be preventable if there was a harm reduction model. When it comes to bringing it back to context of the Sidewalk Project, who they hand out clean needles and pipes. So when addicts pass around a pipe, the saliva, a dirty pipe, passes diseases. When you pass around or use a dirty needle, it passes diseases. It's a public health crisis. A dead addict never gets better. Never. Not one person that died has ever gotten better. But there's this thinking about handing out clean needles that you're enabling people. And that is not true. It's saving lives. It is literally saving lives. An addict, whatever they're addicted to, I'm talking about, I told the story of Richard, but I could tell the story of Sabrina, who died of an overdose in her RV up in Seattle, who, if there was a harm reduction model, I know she would be alive today. So if you're a drug addict, I know of one person who tells a story of his kids were watching cartoons and he ran into the house and unplugged the TV while his kids were watching cartoons and ran out the door to pawn it so he could get more drugs. Anybody with a sane mind would say, those are my kids. They're watching TV. I'm not going to take the TV. But drugs control your life. Let me tell you something about heroin. Heroin is the perfect drug. Now, I never shot heroin, but I smoked heroin. Heroin is the perfect drug because literally once you use heroin, you could saw off your arm and not feel it. The reason people use drugs is to escape pain. There's some trauma in their life, often childhood trauma, that they live with, and it's painful. So they start using drugs to not feel that pain. Then after a while, the drugs take over, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The person no longer exists except to get drugs. So if you're thinking that not having access to a clean needle will stop a heroin addict from shooting up or a meth addict from shooting up because they don't have a clean needle. You do not understand addiction. Jen says you need to sit down because addiction controls a person's life. I know of up in the Lower East Side of Vancouver, the downtown East Side. I don't know if it's the Lower East Side, the downtown East Side, which is Canada's Skid Row. When I was there, they were heroin addicts fixing out of urine puddles. If you don't know so to shoot up, you need a little bit of water. And if you don't have water, homeless people were literally dipping their needle into somebody's urine that was on the ground to fix. They were using urine. Why? Because that's all that was available, and you do not think right when you're wasted. So addicts do not think right. The drugs are taken over. If we do not supply clean needles and clean pipes, they die. They literally die. The thinking that harm reduction enables people is true only in one context. It enables them to stay alive. Because if they die, they're never going to go into recovery. They're never going to be reunited with their family. They're never going to get sober and get a job. A dead person has never gotten better. And then we have all these judgmental Christians. I'm a Christian. Jesus would be right alongside Soma and Jen out saving lives. I guarantee it. Jesus teaches us unconditional love. Love God, love your neighbor. Love God, love your neighbor. There's no place where Jesus taught us to tell people they're a sinner. Oh my gosh, you're a sex worker, you're a sinner, you're enabling, you're giving. So I get it. Religious programming has taught us this war against drugs, which was really just to fill prisons. Prisons are for profit. Nancy Reagan just say no, all was to fill prisons to make money. And as a society, and often the American evangelical church just bought into that addicts are these horrible people and they just need to get sober. It's not a decision. It's not a switch. It's not. And these are real people. Many have families. And if they die, they don't get better. I don't know how I can, if you've got an idea on how I can communicate that better. I mean, Jesus is about love and grace. And I don't know of any better way to extend love and grace than harm reduction. You're saving somebody's life. You're giving them grace so that they can continue to breathe air, that they can continue for another day, to hopefully something will happen where So I saw Hawk Davison was talking about he wants to get sober. I don't know where you live. You say you have 100 acres. I would assume you live in a rural community. I would suggest finding at least starting at AA. AA got me sober. I was an addict, but I related much more to alcoholics than I did NA and CA. And that is a very first start. From there, and I got to tell you something else is that when I worked in the television industry and I wrapped my Mercedes around a parked Cadillac. I blew a .28, which is like 3 times the legal limit. And the judge ordered me to go to AA meetings. So I decided I was going to go to AA meetings that were close to work because I could just go during lunchtime. I didn't want to put any effort in getting better. And so I would go to these AA meetings during work or lunchtime, and I hated them. Oh my gosh, I just hated, they were horrible. And fast forward a couple years, I end up homeless. And I go into an AA meeting in Hollywood, and I got it. I felt unconditional love. People loved me for me. They loved me even though I hadn't showered for a long time. They loved me even though I had a 6-foot iguana on my shoulder. They loved me even though I was homeless and in pain. They loved me. And that Hollywood AA meeting changed my life. So years later, I was wondering, was it me or maybe was that just a bad AA meeting? So I went to North Hollywood or Burbank, I think it was. And I went to that AA meeting. It was horrible. It was horrible. So the point is, you try an AA meeting, and if it doesn't feel right, go to another one. I've been to AA meetings in other countries. I've been in AA meetings in small fishing villages. There's only one AA meeting that I have ever walked out of, and that was in the suburbs of Pickerington, Ohio, and it was a bunch of housewives. And it just didn't fit. So I sat for maybe a half an hour and I got up and left. Otherwise, I have been throughout. But, I tell this story also from when I lived in Ohio. There was a grocery store that was, there's 2 grocery stores where I live. One by work, one by where I live. The one by work I really liked. Same brand, it was a Kroger. And the one by the one by work I liked. The one by where I lived, I didn't like. Same brand, same ketchup, same toilet paper, but there was something about the one store I liked over the other store. It made me feel different, made me feel better. So the point I'm trying to make is to continue to go until you find a place that you can fit. Now, in the world of COVID and this stupid pandemic, I probably should, it's not stupid, it's dangerous, it's horrible. It's, God, I can't wait till we get, is life ever going to get back to normal? I don't know. Anyways, there are a lot of Zoom meetings online. I've participated in a few. Now that I'm back in Los Angeles, I'm going to go to that home meeting where I first got sober, but I don't want to do a Zoom. I want to go in person, and I don't know if they're going to do in-person meetings. I got to look into it. Right now, I'm still unpacking boxes. In a Christian context, harm reduction is love and grace. Soma, you might disagree with Soma's occupation, She's a sex worker. There's a lot of occupations I disagree with. Gosh, politicians. But as the Bible says, look at their fruits. Soma is dedicated her life to helping others that are less fortunate. And it's the 1%. Jesus told us, teaches us to take care of the 1%ers, the outcasts, the sex workers, the drug addicts, the down and out, the lepers. That's who we're supposed to take care of. That is what Soma and Jen and the Sidewalk Project are doing. I will guarantee you that the normal government agencies, the normal nonprofits, and faith-based organizations are not down in that area of Skid Row helping addicts and helping sex workers. There's other organizations besides Sidewalk Project, but they're very few. In the areas that Sidewalk Project goes on a regular basis, there's fewer people dying. Jesus teaches us to give of ourselves for somebody else. And that is exactly what Soma and Jen are doing, and the rest of the volunteers of the Sidewalk Project. So to come in and be judgmental, saying they're enabling, you need to check your beliefs, because they're old, outdated beliefs. The Sidewalk Project, harm reduction, and again, for those that are just tuning in, when you brushed your teeth this morning, that was harm reduction. When you took vitamins, that was harm reduction. When you fastened your seatbelt, when you get in a car, that is harm reduction. You practice harm reduction. Well, I hope you brush your teeth every day. You practice harm reduction every day. Providing clean needles, providing a clean pipe keeps people from dying. It enables them to stay alive. It's also very Christian-like, because you're not judging that person. You're helping them stay alive. It's unconditional love and grace. So I thought I was going to explode during that one. I really, really did, because I'm a Christian. I call myself a follower of Jesus, because Christians these days, oh my gosh, the church is dying. Pew Research does data about people joining Christianity, and it's, somebody in one of the comments today said, yes, it's because of transgender. No, it's not. It's because the church is filled with racism. It's because the church is filled with right-wing ideology. The evangelical support of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, that's repelled young people away from the church. It's the right-wing ideology that is repelling people from the church. It's the hatred of immigrants. It's the hatred of sex workers. It's the judgmental. If you're a Christian and you're pointing to somebody else going, they're a sinner, you are repelling people from Christianity. Christianity is known as the religion of hate. Instead of showing what we stand for, instead of extending love and grace like Jesus taught us to, we're telling people, oh my gosh, you're gay, you're a sinner. No. Oh, what's going on? You don't know Jesus, then the world is eternal. You're ignorant Christian. The church is infiltrated morals over evil. I don't know if you're directing that at me. Um, I assume so. The Great Commission, all that, it's not even in the Bible, right? This is stuff that we're taught, but I'm not even going to go there, right? That's MLM, multi-level marketing stuff that man has taught to grow church as a business, to win souls, win souls, win souls. That is not Jesus. That is what man has taught you. That is religious programming. But here's the thing. Even if your priority is to win souls for eternity, you're going to let people live in hell here on earth? And Skid Row is hell. I have seen hell in the United States. I have seen hell in Canada and UK. So this idea, I mean, gosh, how fucked up is this? I'm going to go into an area where there's drug addicts and I'm going to get them to say the sinner's prayer and I'm going to leave. Oh my gosh, how horrible. How absolutely powerless. How ignorant. As a homeless person, on Hollywood Boulevard, there was youth groups that would get in a van from New Mexico and drive all the way and walk down Hollywood Boulevard to win the lost, right? The lost are the people in the church and the people in the youth groups that are sending their kids to Hollywood Boulevard to win the lost. Even if you believe in the Great Commission, which is really an MLM marketing scheme, winning somebody to Jesus, having them say the sinner's prayer, and then leaving them to sit in their addiction, in their hell, in their domestic violence, in their pain, thinking, oh, at least they're going to go be alive forever. Let's just, how horrible is that? And you wonder why Christianity is dying? It's because since the Second World War, the American evangelical church has focused on this winning souls. And the reason for that is not something Jesus taught us, it's to get people in the buildings. The evangelical, oh, you're going to get me going. The evangelical church has raised every year billions and billions of dollars, and majority of it goes to staff and it goes to property and buildings. Very little of it goes to actually helping people. And Daniel just so it's interesting because Daniel just says, I'm happy being an atheist, but nothing against religious people. That's actually very Christian of Daniel to say that. However, in Christianity, the American Evangelical Church, I say that intentionally because there are some denominations of Christian that are very loving. But in the American Evangelical Church, if you're an atheist, if you're a lesbian, if you're transgender, if you're a drug addict, you're a sinner. I'm laughing at Dano. Sorry, Dano. That just was the right timing. So that's my rants for this morning. And let's get back to the Supreme Court has lifted the moratorium on homelessness. Not on homelessness, on eviction, which is going to create more homelessness. And we need everybody in the United States to contact their legislators. Risen Temple Outreach. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The woman just shared openly from her heart that she identifies, or she is, it's not identifies, but she shares openly from her heart. And Jesus can set you free. Well, Risen Temple Outreach, Jesus can set you free of that religious programming. The religious programming that you are sharing is far more of a sin than anything you're pointing your finger at. Remember, when you point your finger, 3 fingers are pointed back at you. When you point your finger at somebody and say, "You sinner," 3 fingers are pointed back at you. Love on people. Stop being judgmental. Please. The church is dying because we have become judgmental assholes. Ooh. So Love, Peace, Joy shared something, and I think one of the moderators wiped it out, but I can see how it could be missed. She or he shared, I can't tell. Sorry, Love, Peace, Joy. God is going to remove false churches, is removing and removing false churches. And I believe that's happening. I really do. I think that's, and then MH10 said the white Jesus is very mean. And that's what people, when you go, sinner, Jesus will deliver you. You're a sinner. People are like, what? That's not love. That's judgment. And we've got to stop it. Love, peace, joy. I do too. And I didn't mean for this to go into a big discussion about this, but so one of the reasons that the American Evangelical Church and probably other denominations has not changed is because we're pressured to stay silent. That is businesses, the military, governments, people are pressured to stay silent. That's just how community and organizations can be. Then what happened is this thing called the internet came around, and it allowed people to start sharing about wrongs. And that has grown. And now people are seeing, and especially young people are running from Christianity because they see the church. They don't see a lot of love in the church. And I used to, literally, I used to be an expert on church growth. I worked for the smallest church I ever worked for had 5,000 members. The biggest church I ever worked for had 15,000 members. I worked for TV ministries that had $48 million yearly budgets. Very little of it had anything to do with God. What I am seeing now is those big mega churches that we knew in the 80s and the 90s, they're going away. They are going away. And I think it's a good thing. One of my favorite leaders said, and I was actually a marketing manager for the Foursquare denomination, which is, I had 55,000 churches underneath me, which I took very serious, both spiritually and professionally. And one of my mentors, somebody who I huge respect, is he said, even back then, I mean, this 25 years ago, he said, God doesn't want to keep every church open. And it's so profound, because every church, they're like, oh, God wants us to grow. God wants us to grow. Well, if you're not, my background is marketing. I worked in TV. Then I lived in a faith-based shelter. The only way I could get out was going to work in ministry. I worked in ministry. And I forget what his first name is Tony. He's the one who said it. I'm really big on attribution. But Tony, churches often will say, how can I grow? Or what do I need to grow? And they're talking about billboards or websites or social media campaigns or radio shows or TV. And he said, I think Tony Morgan. And what he said is so profound. He said, ask yourself, if your church closed tomorrow, would the community notice? And if the answer is no, then start helping your community. And that is where churches need to get back to. Most churches are country clubs. And there's wonderful ministries. You can Google on our YouTube, you'll find the city ministry in Dallas who took 80 people, 80 from under a bridge and put them into cottages using the Housing First model. In the same video, the Stupot has a wonderful art program, but they also have a transgender medical clinic. For a church to have a transgender medical clinic, that's gorgeous. That's wonderful. That's extending love and grace. Okay, folks, we got 10 minutes. What do you want to talk about in those 10 minutes? Yeah, love, peace, joy. Yeah, that's what I went on a rant. I worked for a very large church in St. Louis that is not growing. They continue to... Okay, Addie wants us to change the subject. Addie, what should we talk about? So Lady T asks what I am doing for the rest of my day. Well, right on the other side of this camera are 38 boxes. My stuff arrived from New York. So I am trying to at least get some kind of a home set up that's comfortable. So then I can start going out and working to help homeless people. Walter, I'm torn on Project Roomkey. Yes, there's some abuses, but you got to understand the homeless sector almost overnight set up Project Roomkey because of the CDC. And first off, Project Roomkey was never set up to help homeless people. It was set up because the house people were worried that homeless people would take up ICU beds. It was never ever set up. It's also a real world example of housing people without support, because you're just putting them in hotel rooms without mental health support, addiction support. But on the plus side, I have seen people get into housing from Project Roomkey. I know of some really bad stories of Project Roomkey, and I know some wonderful stories where people were helped. And if you look at it all, I mean, there's no way we could predict that the pandemic was coming and how to respond. And one thing that is really bad is that, the federal government has offered FEMA reimbursement for cities to house more people. And I know in hotels, house more people in hotels. And I know in New York City and Los Angeles, people the governments are not doing that. I don't know why. It's very concerning. I mean, basically, there's money to put more people in hotels, but they're not doing it. So gaining wisdom, yes, you extend love, and then you extend love, and then you extend love and extend love. You don't just give a sandwich and say, oh my gosh, you ate the sandwich and you're still homeless, or you ate the sandwich and you're still an addict. No. And Jesus isn't magic. Oh gosh, sorry, Addie, no more religion. You don't just read scripture and all of a sudden your life gets better. Homeless people do not need to say a prayer. They need Christians to start answering their prayers. So it boils down to this: you extend love, but if people still want to live in sin, then you are supposed to teach them. The ones that are living in sin are the churchgoers who are not going out and helping their neighbors. That's the sin. That's where you need to go. There's 450,000 churches in this country. If all of them housed 2 homeless people, we would end homelessness tomorrow. The American Evangelical Church could end homelessness tomorrow if it wanted to. It doesn't. Those are the people that you need to teach. Christians are not acting like Christians. That's where you need to teach. And I'm going to say it again because it is so true. Homeless people do not need to say a prayer. They need Christians to start answering their prayers. Just by reading a Bible. Most homeless people know more scripture than your senior pastor. They live with their Bible. They sleep with their Bible in their tent and their sleeping bag. They pray constantly. They're asking for help. Yet the church doesn't go help them. They might give them a burrito or a ham sandwich, but they need to get out of homelessness. That's where we need to go teach. We need to go into the churches and the pews and teach people. to go out and help end homelessness. Yeah, Ralph, there's some great, the stew pot downtown. There's a city, and Addie and Derek, you guys can allow, I mean, if somebody's really nasty, zap them. But, difference of opinion, especially when it comes to religion, is very strong. And it's okay to leave some of that. So, and let me explain that. I don't know how other channels operate. I don't control other channels. But for invisible people, I believe in open communication. The comments that are zapped are the ones that are just nasty or just not true, or, but if somebody has a difference of opinion, I think it needs to be there, even if I don't agree with it. And the person that prayer works. Great. Let's pray peace in Afghanistan. Let's pray that we end homelessness tomorrow. And then you got to do something. And back to my other point, you can pray until you're blue in the face. Jesus isn't magic. Magic is just not going to happen because you prayed. You have to go help people. You have to put that prayer into action. And when I say you, I'm talking to the church. And guys, I apologize for this. The response to Soma and Jen are probably more Christian-like than most people I know, because they don't judge. If you're judging somebody, bam, that's the sin that you need to get out of your life. And I apologize, this got heavy into religion and everything else. I mean, could you imagine the Christian church if every church made ending homelessness a priority, if every church made ending poverty a priority? We could fix what's wrong with this world tomorrow. Could you imagine a Christian church that extended love and grace to everybody? The seats would be filled on Sunday morning. Instead, there are fewer people becoming Christian every day. It's diminishing. And the reason for that is Christianity has become a religion of hate. People see Christianity, people pointing fingers and saying, you're gay, you're a drug addict. Where Christianity should be, are you hurting? Let me help you, without judgment. Grace, unconditional love, compassion. If the Christian church started showing grace, unconditional love, and compassion, not only would we be walking in Jesus's teachings, the church would grow. Thank you, Claire. Oh, so K-City, please, just the Pew Research, which is they also research everything like YouTube, and they do research into religion, and Christianity is dying. That's official research. But I'm still connected with many churches around the country, and their attendance is declining. And I'm talking online and in person. There's fewer people becoming Christians than ever before. So love, peace, joy. I have several times. I need coffee too. So we're at 12. Yeah, love, peace, joy. Most churches are less than 100 people, actually. Anne Marie, churches could end homelessness. Churches could end homelessness tomorrow. But what we do is we look at homeless people as sinners instead of saying, oh gosh, we're sitting in a pew doing nothing to help people. Adam, it's interesting because, I know non-denominational has become a denomination, but I literally was I've worked with several churches, the Foursquare, Assemblies of God, and I remember doing research. My boss had me do research about that. There was over 1,700 different kinds of Presbyterians. This denomination stuff is crazy. So I'm the extend love and grace denomination. Lone Ranger is spot on. What Lone Ranger said is too many Christian groups don't back up the gospel in a true way. The hypocrisy doesn't win people over, but that's not indicative of all Christians. So Lone Ranger, spot on. Hopefully I am one of those people, although I'm being judgmental at Christians. So I'm equally as guilty as what I'm accusing them of. Hey, Cassandra, this is the second show, and this is not one of our normal shows, but thank you. Claire, I'm so sorry. I can tell you from working in churches that if you come in from the outside and you need your electric bill paid or your rent or your kids in the hospital, the very first thing the church does is they look to see if you've donated money to them. If you are not a tithing member, they're not going to help you. And tell me how that is not a sin. Sean, well, we're at the end of the show, but HHH, and I supported HHH and H, is the same reason the money coming in to help renters is not going to the people. And that's humans are messed up. And, I'm going to connect it back to Christianity. One of the reasons that I still remain a follower of Jesus is because humans are flawed. And at the end of the day, I need to be able to figure some of that out. So HHH, for those of you who didn't know, was funding that was raised by increasing property taxes that was to build 10,000 housing units. They didn't project the increase in construction. And there was also corruption. And this is what I mean. It was human error. The idea was great. But there was city council members. One was even arrested by the FBI for shady deals with developers. So the idea of HHH building 10,000 units was brilliant, but in application, it has failed. I mean, I think at the end, there will be 7,000 units. That's what they're saying. That's not what people voted for. I have issues with that. But adding 7,000 units is a good thing. What I also feel Los Angeles failed at is Los Angeles went all in on a housing only strategy where there's not enough shelter beds. But let's fast forward. Now congregate shelters, because of the pandemic, are dangerous. So we have to figure out a way of getting people out of homelessness. And I've always been a supporter of shelters as long as they were on, part of a system to housing. But now we have to rethink shelters because congregate shelters have always sucked. But for a short stay, they're fine. This is my problem with the tiny shacks. The tiny shacks are meant for lawnmowers, not people. And the tiny shacks, they say they're temporary, but the bridge housing, which is, LA's sexy term for shelter, has a 15% rate of going into housing. So the tiny shacks, people are going to live in that tiny shack for years. And that's humane. Prisons are bigger. By law, prisons are bigger than those tiny shacks, and a prison cell has a bathroom. So. Lady T, are you in Southern Cal? I didn't think you were in Southern Cal. Yeah, so back to HHH. I think people had good intentions, but there were some people that messed it up. I mean, there was a corrupt politicians, developers who messed it up. And, Enron, Bernie Madoff, there's horrible humans out there that take advantage of others. HHH at its core was really good, but then when it started being executed, started to fail. And I think there's lessons to be learned. Sadly, the homeless sector doesn't look at life like that, and they are not very good at projecting. But the homeless sector should look at HHH, see what's wrong, and make sure it never happens again. Because creating housing is a good thing, although we cannot build our way out of homelessness. What I mean by that is, yes, we need to create new units, but we also have to look at available units, abandoned buildings. I mean, Caltrans has houses throughout California that nobody's living in. They're already built. So we need to go all in on all different ways to get people off the streets into housing, not just building housing. And we also have to figure out a way. People complain, and I get it. $500,000 a unit is pricey. I like the shipping containers I went and saw, but housing in California is pricey. And if you look at the savings, that's a one-time cost. And please, I am not trying to justify the high cost of permanent supportive housing in some areas. The point I'm trying to say is that over time, that cost will pay for itself by getting somebody off the streets. And one of the things that is very frustrating is people bitch about seeing a homeless camp, and then they bitch about every solution, and they don't want to pay for any of it. Well, that's why California doesn't have huge homelessness because of the weather. California has huge homelessness because politicians have been stuck on stupid, because politicians have tried to solve the homeless crisis, which is a serious crisis, using the least amount of money. And now, hopefully that helps. Okay, well, I went a little long. Any last words? Okay, folks, thank you for joining. I actually tried to have a couple of guests this week, but they weren't able to make it. And we hopefully will have some guests soon. We're still trying to figure out the West Coast version of this live stream. Times may change. Thank you all for spending over an hour listening to me rant. I know some people are offended. Hopefully some people would, wake up. I hope that everyone in the United States will scream real loud about, thank you, Jennifer. I hope everybody in the United States will scream real loud to their state and federal politicians, because we have a real crisis coming. Thank you, Addie, and thank you, Derek. I know Addie hates it when I go into religion because there's an extra amount of trolls. Derek likes being a troll zapper. So just imagine if we had Jen and so on of the amount of trolls. Woo! So we might have to bring on another moderator for that live stream. But thank you all for spending a little bit of time. Let's really work together to change people's beliefs on homelessness, and have a great week.